There's three things that I absolutely hate in life, and that's time, money, and technology. And these three things drive society to do a lot of things. I feel like growing up, we're brainwashed this idea of like making a better life for yourself is if you do all the things, like life will be made for you, right? I realized how big that lie was. The real value that exists in life is life. It's the real human beings.
What do you say to people who are skeptical about technology?
Biggest problem with technology is
Welcome to the One Step Podcast, where we share stories of change makers in different fields so you don't have to wait for one day, but you can take one step today to create a change in your life and the lives around you. Today, we are about to listen to my conversation with a dear friend of mine, Nick KUMIA, who is a technology integrator and is undergoing an adventure literally all around America. Now, even though he and I have differences in worldviews, what we share in common is that he and I are deeply curious people and idealists, which has led to many great unrecorded conversations. Now, I will let you know that we've had some challenges with our audio, yet we did our best to treat some overlay in portions so it wouldn't deter you from learning from a great discussion. I hope you enjoy. Ladies and gentlemen, without further ado, make some noise for Nick KUMIA.
light it up.
Yeah, thanks for being on the podcast.
I'm probably like the worst guest intro that you'll probably have because it's just like there's so much unspoken language.
Yeah.
And it's like hard to capture that in a
Yeah.
medium like this. So
Exactly. No, I agree with you. But yeah, let's just get right into it. I mean, obviously you and I know each other fairly well for people who are tuning in just to like a fly on the wall in our conversation who aren't as familiar with you. Man, I'd just love to hear who you are, what got you interested in tech. Is that it's from what I observed, a pretty major passion of yours.
I'll explain.
Which I know you'll explain further. On top of which, too, you're very much into spirituality and really finding the intersection between the two. And then also about to go on a pretty big adventure.
Yeah,
Which is one of the major reasons why we're having this recorded conversation.
for sure.
But yeah, I mean, I love to just talk about yourself for a moment, just to see who you are, how'd you get into tech, what's the story behind that?
Bro, that's like, you know how many things you asked for in this intro?
I know.
And you know how bad my memory is. So I'll start by saying there's three things that I absolutely hate in life, and that's time, money, and technology. And there's three things that kind of drive society to do a lot of things. And I feel like growing up, we're sort of brainwashed. We're all brainwashed to some degree, right? But we're brainwashed into this idea that time, money, and technology are just like technology as well. So we'll come back to that topic a little bit later. But time and money and this idea of like making a better life for yourself is sort of pictured a certain way. So we grow up thinking that life is this pie in the sky type of scenario where you have like something waiting for you after if you do all the things, like life will be made for you, right? And I feel like as I grew up, I kind of realized how big that lie was. And I'm trying to tie that back so to your question. Who I am, I've started to identify myself as a technology integrator. And what that means in a general sense is that assuming there's two systems, and systems doesn't have to be technical systems, it could be like people systems, it could be cultural systems, right? Assuming there's two systems existing, doing the best that they can, trying to be the best that they can, and they are forced to sort of coexist. My job, what I've decided my job to be essentially is how to unify these or like help them coexist and cohabitate, maybe not have a codependency on each other, but be able to figure out what is that interface of like, what do I need from you? What do you need from me? And what are the things that we don't really need anything in between? And that last part of like, where is it okay to just like be by yourself? I think answering that question is a big struggle. And that's where a lot of divisiveness is happening in the world today. And I feel like this is where I lose my train of thought, right?
You're good, man. This happens for anyone who's watching. This happens a lot. This happens a lot, but that's what makes our conversations special. It's trying to remember where was it going? Where was it going? Let me help you out a little bit. When did you get interested in the subject of technology in the first place?
So I want to say like growing up, right, I probably got a phone when went into 7th grade. I definitely had gaming systems before that. I wanna say it's very hard to know when the exact time I got interested in technology. I was always curious about building stuff. I loved, like, getting, involved in, like, learning about things, which is why I think technology is just an advancement of that in some degree. And, like, I took a computer science class in my high school, and then I did engineering for my undergrad. So, it was mechatronics engineering, which I feel like there's always hit or miss whether people know what this is or not. Mechatronics engineering is mechanical, electrical, computer control engineering. Mechanical engineering was the biggest part of that degree, so it's like 70% mechanical, 20% electrical, 10% computer and control.
Sure.
And you'd think from that, like, it'd be kind of a no-brainer that you would be a mechanical engineer and kind of just be involved in, like, the integration of technology from that.
Yeah.
But what I expanded on from that, and the way the teachers sort of like explained the concept, was like, you have a system that has many different parts. And once you understand like one part in depth enough, you can translate that to a lot of other aspects of life. So I think that's what led me into being able to transition more into the computer science side of tech and like actual like software side. So that was a
Yeah.
long intro.
No,
but
that's really good. No, that's really good. That's really good. I think it gives some context to who you are, and especially your interest when it comes to technology and the backstory to it.
that's probably professionally who I am.
Yeah.
But like individually who I am, like, as you said, like I'm very spiritual in the sense of like my core is just like I like to like search for the truth. And there's so many, any field you go into, any discipline has that aspect of it in the sense of like they're all trying to make sense of the reality that we're experiencing.
Yeah.
And like science tries to take a very practical, hands-on approach, and have my reservations about science. I don't know if we talk about that a little bit.
Yeah. To be super clear, but it's not like you're a type of individual who completely disregards
No.
science or anything like that.
No,
Obviously,
no.
you're in technology, and
I have a
It's
general disregard for rules, but yes, I'm a law-abiding citizen.
Here's why I emphasize all this, because I think oftentimes we can view spirituality and science as two opposing forces.
Yeah.
And in a special fashion, you seem to try to integrate the two.
Yeah. Trying to segue into
I think, yeah, you describe yourself as a very spiritual person, as someone who seeks the truth. What was that journey like to try to reconcile the two, as far as spirituality, in this case technology, but also just like science as well?
yeah. So I think this is probably a good point to bring up the name of like the road trip that I'm taking.
Well, before you even mention that, to give some context, so I mentioned before, you are going to be going on a great adventure, specifically a road trip. Would you mind explaining what that is?
Yeah, so I feel like growing up in America, right? We, as I said, like we were sort of lied to, and we like go through the school system, we learn a bunch of things, but it doesn't really help us after we exit the school system, try to like go into real life, right? So one of the things is like we learn about America in school, like we learned about the States, we learned about like our history, American history, right? But how much of us really know America, right? And we look at it in the news. We know people from different states, right? But on a daily basis, we don't actually interact with them. And I think it's crazy how different America is, even though there is so much that connects us too. There's a lot of things that you'll find all across the nation, but there's a lot of things that will be different in how you expect them to operate, if you will.
Yeah.
So I'm curious about like learning about that, right? I wanted to figure out like what is going on in America, and specifically as in recent years, there's been a lot of division in terms of politics and just like people kind of like making their own worlds, and then they kind of stick to their own worlds and they don't really try to reach out. But I feel like there's something we have to do to sort of unify us as a nation, because America is built on this idea of freedom. And if we don't understand what that freedom is and respect other people's freedom, like the ability to have freedom means that you're respecting other people's freedom as well. And I feel like that concept about independence and about like coexisting with others and just like, being a real human being, which is what freedom in America is all about. I think is being lost. So I want to find that. I want to connect with people. I want to hear their story, like how we got to where we got to. And try to see if there's anything I can do on an individual level to enable others to like get us to a better future.
Yeah. It's funny you mentioned all that because like you were just talking about how you describe yourself as like a technology integrator and really looking through systems, whether people systems, technological systems, and so forth. And with what you just described, it sounds like a big portion of that are people systems.
The biggest problem with technology is people. So
wow, you want to unpack that?
So it's most evident in cybersecurity, right? In the sense of like we have software that's developed to do a certain way, a certain thing, and like back in the 80s, right? We had the internet. There was no security, right? Everything was unencrypted. You didn't like. There were people out there that like maybe did some mischievous things once in a while, but there was a lot more curiosity, right? And I think what happened is that all of a sudden everyone got access to technology and they didn't learn what it meant to like use technology. And what happens is that people's bad intentions is what makes technology bad. So technology is bad. It's just a medium through which energy is transformed, right? And the energy you put into it is what the technology is going to create. So if we put in bad energy, the technology is going to be bad.
Wow. No, that's good. That's good because you actually touched on one of the questions I was going to answer. Is like, what do you say to people who are skeptical about technology? And I think that response is really good. I don't want to lose a train of thought though. With this particular trip, I know it's not just to learn about people's stories. If I remember correctly, there's an aspect about technology that plays into that, which is the whole reason of spiritual tech. So yeah, I'd love you to specify what exactly you're doing and how spiritual tech plays into that.
Yeah. So people who know me, right, especially you, John, like we have so many philosophical discussions that it's like there's a lot of theory ideals that go into like things. That's like the core of what we do, which is why it's easy to talk about that stuff, but it's so hard for people to understand that sometimes because they don't see the actual implementation of that. So I'm just going to go into a little more ideals before we talk about like what exactly I'm doing on our road trip. So the reason I called it spiritual tech, I made a series about this too, right? There's 5 videos that I have on YouTube that explain sort of the basis of like what it means for spiritual tech to like exist. And at a high level, right? Spiritual tech, there's the 2 sides of it. There's the spiritual aspect of it and then the technology aspect of it, right? So technology, I'll just explain in terms of there's science, engineering, and technology, right? So science is the theory, engineering is practice, and technology is the implementation. So a lot of people don't understand science and engineering, and they just interact with technology. And what happens is that they get access to an ability, and they don't understand how to use that ability, right?
Wow.
So it's the technology side. The spiritual side of it, regardless of technology, regardless of what comes and goes, we're people. People exist, and people created technology. People existed way before, and they're hopefully gonna exist way after, assuming we don't screw ourselves over. So I think the whole point is that what I was talking about technology being a medium, right? The real value that exists in life is life. It's the real human beings, and that's what I'm considering as the spiritual aspect of it. And when people think about spirituality, they think about, oh, it's just like a different type of religion or it's a different type of like science, right? But science, spirituality, religion, and politics are kind of like meshed together into some weird relationship, but I think they're all very different. And spirituality, I think, should be no more than us as humans connecting with each other and the energy that we have in each other. That's that's spirituality. Just understanding your energy, understanding the energy of others, and be able to connect with that. Because energy is always flowing, right?
Yeah.
You can't create or destroy energy. It's always transformed, right? So wherever we came from, what energy we brought, wherever we're going, wherever energy we're transferring it to, I think that's what we have to focus on. And technology is supposed to enable that ability. So that's like the core behind spiritual tech and the core behind the road trip. And then
That's good.
in terms of like what we're trying to do, and I say we in the sense of like I can't do it myself, right? I'm sort of trying to lead an effort, but it's supposed to be a revolution across America, with America, by America, for America, right? And I'm starting in America. I'm American. I love my country. But worldwide, I think this idea is very much translatable to any culture, any civilization. So what I'm gonna do though, essentially, is a lot of folds, and that's why I've mentioned the videos because I go into a lot more detail. But a long story short, inside joke.
I
Probably
said that
could have
way.
overlaid.
I know I say that way too often.
I want to once I hear people's story, understand how they understand technology. My goal is to help teach teach them as much as I can in terms of understanding technology in a better sense and be able to help them apply technology more effectively in their lives. And what that means is me like going around, going to public places, going to schools, going to just meeting random people, just having conversations. Once I know what technology they're using, I want to build things with people, right? So I want to like start GitHub repos. I want to build hardware, build robots, like help them fix cameras. I want to help them, do fix their phone, like whatever it is, whatever and anything. I feel like we all have to help each other because if we don't, it's only going to get worse. Technology is going to get more advanced. We're going to know less about it as a general public. And it's just going to be a worse problem, a worse future. So I feel like what I want to do is help enable people to like reach out to each other and help them learn about technology.
That does. No, that really does. One detail that I also want to emphasize too, as far as you traveling around America, what's the plan? If I remember correctly, your goal is to travel to all 50 states.
I can't drive to Alaska. Well, I mean, I could drive to Alaska. I can't drive to Hawaii. So depending on how successful this trip is, how many people connect to me, I might have the means and resources to like actually do all 50 states, but at least the 48 continental or you know the word.
I know.
Yes, contiguous. You can put an overlay. Look it up. Continental something.
Something. But
It's
that's
all connected. It's like
what's the timeline of you trying to travel to hopefully all 50, if not 48 states?
So it's going to be about a year. It's supposed to be a week in each state. I'm going to hit up the capital, a small city, and like the most popular city in each state. And popular is a really relative term, depending on what group you're part of. So it's more like the tourism state, more the tourism city, if you will. So I want to hit up let's spend like a few days in each of those cities. So 3 days per city, about a week per state. And it's going to end up being like a year.
That's super cool, man. You and I have a lot of great conversations, and we're very comfortable with each other and having good conversations.
I wouldn't be able to talk like this if this wasn't for John, by the way.
That's something I want to point out there really quick, though, is because like what you plan on doing, you're going to have to talk to a bunch of strangers. You know what I'm saying? And I know we had in previous conversations how you mentioned before that how it could be a challenge in certain social settings for you to, engage and so forth. So, I mean, but obviously, like I've seen you in other spaces where like you could get out of your shell not quickly, but get out of your shell and just engage with people. How did you get to a point where you're able to do that so far? What do you plan on doing in this adventure that you plan on going to in order to engage with people, complete strangers?
That's a great question. And I love it because I'm an introvert, right? I've always been an introvert. I probably always will be an introvert. I'm definitely highlighting on like the introvert, extrovert, like you can be both, just like a different way in different aspects. But like growing up, I was always super shy. Elementary, middle, like high school is where I started to break out a little bit. And that was just because I was in clubs and I had friends and like we did stuff. But like going out and being in a new place, I could never do that, right? And then when I started college, I started college at 16, right? So I was always the youngest. Man, it was like
young prodigy.
I mean, everyone there's people with 13-year-olds that are like graduating PhDs. So I'm just like one of the anomalies. I like the best ones. But like I took a public speaking class in college, right?
Yeah.
It was like everyone has to do that, right? But I think through the opportunities I had in that college and the mentors I had, the friends that I had to like encourage me, I was able to like get up on stage, do presentations a lot more, and just like break out of that comfort zone. Because if you don't do it, like you're never gonna change, right? And it's hard. It's not like there's no like recipe for like breaking that mold. Everyone's different, and I feel like having the people around you to encourage you and the spaces in which you can break out easier will help you develop the skills which you can then transform into places that are a lot harder. So like me going on the street, just like talking to someone random, like I could do that now, but like I mean, even now it's like hard, but like I overcome it, right? I like make conscious decisions to say like I know why I'm doing this, and like I have some confidence in myself that I kind of know myself, and like the worst can, like people say like the worst that can happen, right? They
They
ignore
say
you
no
or
you,
something,
they
right?
say no, they blow you off or ignore you. Yeah.
And now the world's a little different, right? The worst that can happen is a little worse than that, depending on like how much you say and like what you say. But like
Right.
we're gonna assume you're not going on dates to like aggravate people and
Right.
and stuff. And you never know what people you're gonna encounter with one energy, right?
Exactly.
So
Exactly. I resonate with that a lot because like even to this day, especially as a young kid, I've always been very risk averse.
yeah,
Like to play it safe and all that stuff. And I think one of the regrets from that is you never know. It's not until you take a risk, you never will discover what's on the other side of that.
yeah,
And it wasn't until I decided to get outside my comfort zone and take certain steps and make cognitive decisions of like, hey, I'm going to do this.
yeah.
It wasn't until that I discovered, oh, wow, there's so much more that I'm able to do, people to meet. And so even just what you're describing, it's like really good. And it's something I'll quit. Go ahead. Because I know you forget. I know you forget. I know you
No,
forget.
it's one thing that's really related to that thing is that people always want better, right? And
Mm.
better means there's a difference. Difference means that you have to change, right? And
Mhm.
change requires risk. So if you don't take that risk, you're never going to get a better life.
That's good, man. That's good.
So it highlights everything you're saying.
It makes me think something I was just reminded of recently. There's a guy by the name of Ryan Leake. He did a documentary called Chasing Failure, where he cold emailed NBA teams and said, hey, like, let me try out. Long story short, he actually made an attempt to get recruited and went through the process, documented the whole thing. The whole idea behind it was just essentially saying like, hey, like we could be so averse to failure when in reality, failure is literally part of the process. And so for me, it's even just a reminder like, hey, anything that we're attempting to do,
Yeah.
We should train ourselves. We should expect failure and we shouldn't be so dismayed by it. And I'm preaching to myself as I'm saying this because man, like the comfort that I love is the feeling of success. I don't like the feeling of failure, but I have to just recognize, hey, like I need to reframe my perspective on it. Think, hey, it's part of the process. It's part of the growth. It's part of the journey. It's how I learn. It's how I grow. It's how I develop. And so, and I think in other words, like another way to put it, it's just like we're crashing upward, you know?
You're crashing upward?
Crashing upward,
Yeah.
you know? You might be crashing, but hey, as long as you're crashing upward, you're heading in the right direction, you're good.
There's definitely a lot of quotes about like success and failure. Actually, there's one video that I talk about success, and I have some of those quotes like Thomas Edison, like didn't fail, I just found 10,000 ways that won't work.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
So if you think of each failure, or each thing that you do in terms of success or failure, it just as its own accomplishment. It helps you take that one step and just be like, I did this thing. I don't really care if it was success or failure. It just got me to a different place.
Yeah. I think the cool thing as we were just talking about regret and all that stuff, I think that's the cool thing about even just taking a chance is the fact that even if it does fail, we can always look back and be like, hey, you know what? At least I tried, rather than living with the regret of what if I tried.
No, but real story. Do you have regrets?
Yeah. Like I think I touched on it a little bit earlier, but I think the biggest regret is just things that I just not taking risks sooner.
But like, so what's your definition of regret? I'm curious now.
I would say my definition of regret is just this feeling of wishing something was different. So in this particular case, my regret was, man, I wish my past was different. I wish I took different actions and things like that.
So I like a lot of people like I'll talk about regret in terms of like, oh, you'll take this to your deathbed, and that's when you think about, oh, what are the things that you wish happened, right? I feel like acknowledging that things could have been different is like a healthy part of like growing.
Mm-hmm.
But I guess the regret to me is you only regret it as long as you hold on to it.
Yeah.
So it's not like you can regret forever.
Right.
And I feel like a lot of people don't know that in the sense of like they know that they regret something and they just keep thinking about it. That's what makes it actual regret. If you actually like to spend the time to like figure out what you can do to move on from it, you can actually overcome regret. I feel like.
Yeah.
So.
That's good. Like, that's really good. No, that's really good. That's really good.
I forgot how is it really. There was something that you were saying that I think I was gonna say, but I forgot.
I'm not surprised. But it's really good.
I think what I want to say is that like you might have regrets, but like I don't think you actually regret stuff because like I feel like I guess that's the point I was trying to make. Like when you actually consider regret is a personal basis or very subjective in the sense of like if you regret something for like 2 months, did you really regret it? Like
2 months is a long time.
I mean, people regret things their whole life. Well,
That's true. That's true. That is true.
I mean, yeah, I feel like for me, like when I look at you, I feel like you don't have regrets. So that's why.
So okay, so I think to help clarify, I don't carry regrets, meaning like I don't ruminate or think about them often. You know, I don't dwell on them or live in that. I think to your points, to use your words, like there'll be moments of acknowledging, like, man, I wish things were different, but also balancing that with, yes, things could have been different, but I'm gonna focus my attention on the future and my hope and the hope in the future, man. Recognizing the reality is I can't change the past, but what I can have influence over and have control over is my future and the choices that I make. There are moments where I feel prompted to like have a conversation with someone. Like if I see someone sitting by themselves or someone working behind the cash register, like, oh, I feel like this prompting, like I should talk to that person, or just, you know, try to give an encouraging word or like that. And because of fear or whatever the case might be, you know, I avoid doing so. And I'm like, man, I'm like, dang, I wish I would have done things differently. So I view those moments of regret as like learning lessons. Like, hey, you know what? I failed now. Let me not fail again.
Yeah.
Let me actually do something different. Let me learn from this. So we're recording this episode now before your trip.
Yeah.
The idea is to record another episode after you get back, to compare the before and after.
Yeah.
What are some things that you like to say now?
Yeah.
So that you can look back on this episode. You know, what are some things that you're hoping to see, hoping to do, experiences you're trying to see within yourself?
Steve, that's trying to say like,
I want, like, because you said,
what would you tell your future? Well, no, like, it's the opposite.
Exactly.
Right?
What do you think? Like, what do you think your
future self would like to know from?
No, what are you gonna tell your future self basically? Because like your future self is gonna look at this a year from now.
Yeah.
You know.
So
this is gonna be so good. I'm so excited for this. Cause I'm just like picturing that, you know, that moment. Yeah, like we're gonna be watching this episode together.
No
like,
way.
Yeah, you remember that? it like.
Yeah. So there's so many things I do. Reflection or introspection, retrospection. That's the word. Quite often, right? I'm like, I look back at like 11-year-old me or like 13-year-old me or 8-year-old me and be like, yo, I see myself in a picture and I'm like, yo, if I could go hug you right now, I would hug you, right? And like, I would, that's what, like, no matter what you are in the future, bro, like, I still want to hug you. Like, it goes both ways. One of the things that I thought about recently was that 50 years from now, the world's going to be completely different, right?
Yeah.
50 years ago, like even some things that exist back then don't exist today. Yeah. So I want to see what I can kind of like experience that is only existing in this lifetime right now. And one of the things that like I've like come to terms with recently, and maybe my future self will feel different about this, so it'll be interesting comparison. So we've been grappling with this idea of knowledge preservation for a very long time, right? And what I've come to currently is that there's a balance. Like it's all good and well to preserve history, but I think it's okay if history is lost as well, because the whole point of being a human being, an intelligent spiritual being, is that you have the ability to always discover whatever it is that is the truth behind this reality. And I don't have a good answer for like how much knowledge preservation we have to do versus how much new growth and like new discovery we have to do. But maybe in the future, after this road trip, you'll see something about how someone did something and you'll be able to like say like, this is an area where knowledge preservation is absolutely critical, and this is an area that knowledge preservation is like okay if we lose it or not. I don't think that's going to be true though. So we'll see what he says. I don't know.
Yeah. That's very good. Yeah. Any particular goals?
Top 10 fastest biggest, fastest, whatever, like roller coasters.
Okay.
On the list. It's going to be very hard because like I'll be working full time, right?
Yeah.
And I feel like to go to a theme park, I feel like it's a whole day adventure. And I feel like if I do all the things that I want to do, it's going to be more than a year, right? People are already warning me that it's going to be more than a year. I'm just like crazy for thinking it's only going to be a year. But like to do all these things, what you're saying, like it's going to take a very long time. So I'm going to see how much I can do in terms of fastest roller coasters. So one of the things that I like to do, being spontaneous and being a risk taker now, and we were talking about risk before. There was actually one point where I shifted to be super risky. And I forget if we talked about this or not, but middle of 2021, right? I had a really bad breakup, right? and I was like, I needed to like make a drastic change in my life, and maybe it was an overcorrection, but I think I turned out just fine. So we'll leave it as that. But I started taking a lot more risks. And one of the things I like to do in terms of being spontaneous is like go do things that are like breaking the rules a little bit. So like how there's like people who like climb buildings and like go places that they're not supposed to go. Like I want to do stuff like that. I don't know what exactly yet, but hopefully I'll meet some people out there that are like doing some crazy shit, and I'll be just be part of you guys. So I think
nice. Super cool, man. No, that's good. What's the best way for people to follow your journey, to stay connected with you?
Yeah. So for people who want to reach out to me, I have Instagram, LinkedIn, and YouTube. Those are the 3 main ones that I'll be posting on. GitHub, if you're technical and you want to reach out to me and actually do projects with me, collaborate, like it's all there. All of this that I tried is on GitHub. All GitHub issues, all the work, all the video editing I do are kind of like the notes that I have around GitHub issues. At KUMIA, KUMIA. Like it's been my name for the longest while.
Ever since you were born.
Since I was born.
2 final questions I got for you is, considering your story of where you've come up to now and what you plan on doing with this trip, what's one step that you would encourage?
Yeah, that question. So since we met, right? You told me you did this one step podcast, and maybe for like a few months I didn't watch it just because I don't know why I didn't watch it, but I didn't have time. But I went to New York. Not even a few months, it was just a few weeks. I went to New York. On the way, I would listen to like half your podcast.
Yeah, I remember.
It was like what a 19, 20-hour drive, and I'm like, okay, I got John for 20 hours of my life. But so I know what you do, but I should have been preparing. My point for saying this, I should have been prepared for this question, but I obviously wasn't. So
it's all good, man. I enjoy the spontaneous, on the fly, authentic moment of the answer.
That's what life is, like I never think things through.
Yeah.
That's not, I will think things through for president. Don't worry. One step you can take right now though. I want to say that this step is to break out of the traditional mold of what people expect of you and explore to figure out what it is that you're actually not really born to do, but like, there's a word for that. You know what I'm trying to say?
2 words that came to my mind, either desiring to do or designed to do. But those
we'll go with designs. I like that word. And I feel like what happens is that we get sort of complacent, and not even by design. We get too involved in the worlds that we become part of. And like, I feel like if you found your place, by all means, stay there. Like, build your place where it is, if that's where that you find the most happiness and joy in life. I think the point of where happiness comes from is that if you're looking for something, you need to look for that thing. And people tell me like, since I've been looking for a girl the longest time, right? They're like, oh, it's gonna happen when you stop looking for it. But I think that it's not necessarily that you're looking for anything in particular, but you have to be out there searching. You have to be out there experiencing life. And that step is actually going out.
And that's good. That's true.
Yeah. I mean, they say showing up, right?
Yeah. No, if you don't show up, I think the only hope, like, for example, if you're going to go with the example of dating, for example.
Yeah.
If you don't show up, if you don't show out, I mean, your only chance of meeting someone is going to be the FedEx delivery person. You know what I'm saying?
Or the Uber Eats, apparently, whatever that is.
Yeah. So one final question for you.
Okay.
Who is one person that you would like to see on this podcast? And what is one question that you'd like to ask that person?
Oh, there's so many people that, at least there's a few that I want to say, because I think that you can do it. I feel like your podcast is going to make it. So Kevin Hart, Hassanman, and Trevor Noah, those 3. In terms of what you got to ask them, there's an energy that they have, right? And I feel like you need to understand where they get that energy from and how they're able to actually bring it out. And I feel like if you answer that question, other people understand how to bring that energy themselves. And it might be different energy. Like they have like super crazy energy. Like I'm not in the sense of it's super high or super low, but it's less like the type of energy, like the wavelength that it vibrates at. It's just like there's something about them, right? You know this when you see them.
Yeah.
Everyone has that for themselves. So if you get that out of them, then you'll be able to inspire others to like look for it themselves.
Man, dude, I love how you included 3 of my, my
Both of us, bro.
Yeah. I think just quickly speculating on that, do you think that energy that they portray, do you think it is a skill or something they're born with, or both? Because here's why I ask. Because if I were to ask them, hey, that energy, how is it that you are able to portray that, display that? For other people to listen in, is like, if it's something we think that they're born with, and then it'll be hard for other people to replicate. But if it's something that they've nurtured, then there's possibility for other people to replicate.
I think that's the wrong question. So the nature versus nurture problem, though, like what you're born with versus what you can develop, I feel like that's not where that question is, right? That question is assuming that everyone knows that they have energy within them. Like you're born with something, right? But you're not really born with knowing how to access it.
Yeah.
So it's not necessarily that you're born with something special. Everyone's born special, right? I believe that fully. It's just when you learn about yourself and you learn about how you're able to be yourself, be true to yourself. That's what we're trying to get out. That make more sense?
Yeah.
So the question of whether you're born with it or you develop it, it's like you're born with something and you're developing it as well.
Yeah. I agree. That's how I always viewed it too. Yeah. That's good. Dude, thank you so much for being on the podcast.
Of course, bro. Pleasure. Yo, this guy, John, I don't know why he only has like 100 followers. Yo, this guy should be hundreds of thousands. Great voice. He knows his shit. Bro.
I appreciate it, man. I appreciate it. No, I appreciate you, Nick. And I'll say this publicly, man. Generally, man, I just really am grateful for your life. I know that the best is ahead of you.
Yeah.
It's been amazing just to have such great conversations with you.
I like falling together, bro.
Yeah, exactly. And like I said before, I think the biggest thing that I really do appreciate is the fact that we have very clear differences.
Yeah.
At the same time, we're still very much connected on unifying things. And we both have one thing that we both share is that we have this very idealistic view to become better ourselves and to better the world around us and take others along for the journey. But man, you just constantly been an encouragement in my life, man. And I just want to say, man, you are gifted, you're talented, you're competent. And I'm just really grateful for your life, bro.
This guy always has such great speeches, and I can never replicate them. So, like, everything he said, infinite times back at him, right?
I appreciate it, man. Well, hey, y'all. Till next time. Thank you for tuning into One Step. It would mean so much if you subscribe and leave a review on your favorite platform, as you'll be a part in promoting this show to becoming better and bringing you practical insight. If you'd like to get in touch with me, you can visit onesteppodcast.com, where you'll find helpful links such as following our social media pages and even leaving a voice message to ask questions and give feedback. Who knows, you might get featured on a future episode. Overall, thank you. And remember, change begins and continues with one step.